Based on the sources, superfluous means more than is needed, desired, or required. It refers to something that is so unnecessary that it could easily be done away with. Here are some key aspects of the definition of superfluous found in the sources. It describes something that could be removed without detracting from the quality of something else. Synonyms for superfluous include excess, extra, redundant, spare, supererogatory, supernumerary, surplus, unnecessary, and unneeded. Superfluous can also describe something serving no useful purpose or having no excuse for being. In this sense, synonyms include ocios, pointless, purposeless, senseless, and wasted. The word comes from Latin and literally means overflowing, super, over, plus flora, to flow. This suggests something that goes beyond what is needed. In the context of today's consumer-driven society, the landscape of the superfluous is ever-expanding due to the relentless pursuit of novelty, the allure of instant gratification, and sophisticated marketing strategies that can lead to excessive consumption. The constant influx of new products can make previous acquisitions seem inadequate, contributing to a cycle of wanting more than what is truly necessary.
Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time we're going to be looking at something that I think affects us all, and that's our relationship with buying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sources that you've given us this time are really, really interesting.
Yeah.
We've got articles about customer service, and then we have articles about the psychology of consumption.
Right.
And then we even have like a Wikipedia entry on something called the Diderot effect, which sounds super interesting.
It is really fascinating.
So I guess the big question is, with all this talk about buying and buying more,
Yeah.
what does it all mean for you, the listener?
Right.
So that's what we're going to try to figure out.
That's our mission.
I guess maybe we can start by sort of talking about the current landscape of more.
Yeah, landscape of more.
One of the articles that I read talked about how, we are just constantly bombarded with all this advertising and all these new products and trends and stuff. And
Right.
it kind of makes you feel like as soon as you get the latest gadget, there's already a new one out there that's better.
A newer, shinier one, for sure.
Right. And it's like, that saying, the grass is always greener.
Yeah, it really is. And this is not a new thing.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. That's where the Diderot effect comes in.
Okay.
Back in 1769, so we're talking way back.
Wow.
This French philosopher, Denis Diderot, wrote an essay about how he got this new dressing gown.
Okay.
And he was so excited about it at first, but then he started to feel like everything else in his house looked kind of shabby in comparison.
Oh, so he had to replace everything.
He basically went on a spending spree.
Yeah.
Just to try to make everything match this beautiful new dressing gown.
So he went broke.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's interesting because it makes you think, like, why does getting something new make us devalue what we already have?
That's a good question.
Are we really that easily swayed by novelty? I mean, think about it. Have you ever felt that pressure to constantly upgrade?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
New clothes, a new car. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And I think part of the reason why this is so effective is because companies are really good at tapping into that desire for more, and they're using increasingly sophisticated methods to do it.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, one of the articles dives into this world of data brokers.
Data brokers?
Yeah, these companies that collect and categorize tons of personal information about us.
That's kind of creepy.
It is a little bit creepy,
Yeah.
especially when you realize they have these, like, categories for people. Like, one of the examples was credit-crunched city families.
So they know, like, everything about us.
Pretty much. And they use that information to target us with ads that play on our specific insecurities and aspirations. Yeah.
So they know, like, how to manipulate us.
Exactly. It's no wonder we feel this pressure to buy all the time, right?
It does feel like we're being manipulated.
Yeah.
But I guess the good news is that there are some people who are pushing back against this idea of always needing more, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's a growing awareness of the environmental and personal costs of overconsumption, and it's manifesting in some really interesting trends. Like, for example, have you heard of underconsumption core?
Underconsumption core? No.
So it's this trend on TikTok where people are embracing a more minimalist lifestyle. They're buying only what's absolutely necessary.
So are they, like, getting rid of everything?
Not necessarily. It's more about being intentional with your purchases.
Yeah.
Like really thinking about what you need and why you need it before you buy it.
That makes sense. I mean, I can see the appeal of that, especially with younger generations who seems to be valuing experiences more than material possessions.
Right. It's about quality over quantity, and I think that's a really positive shift.
Yeah, definitely. But speaking of minimalism, I feel like that word gets thrown around a lot.
Oh, for sure.
But what does it actually mean?
Well, that's the thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all concept.
Right.
One of the sources actually outlined 3 distinct types of minimalism: traditional, extreme, and rational.
Okay, so 3 different types.
Yeah. So traditional minimalism is kind of what you might think of when you hear the word. It's about decluttering your home and paring down to the essentials. Having less stuff so you have more time, more money, and more mental space.
I can definitely see the appeal of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can.
Less stress.
Exactly. But, of course, there's also the potential downside, which is that it can be really tough to let go of things, especially things that have sentimental value.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have extreme minimalism.
Extreme minimalism. What's that?
So these are the people who are really serious about minimizing their possessions. Some people even aim to own less than 100 items total.
100 items? That's like almost nothing.
It is pretty extreme, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see the appeal of that ultimate freedom.
Right.
But it also sounds like it could get a little obsessive.
Yeah, I mean, some people might feel isolated or like they're constantly trying to outdo others in terms of who owns the least.
That doesn't sound very healthy.
Not really, and that's where rational minimalism comes in.
Rational minimalism.
Yeah. This is kind of the middle ground.
Yeah.
A balanced approach.
So you don't have to get rid of everything.
Exactly. It's about making mindful choices about what you bring into your life, prioritizing quality over quantity, but still allowing yourself to have things that bring you comfort and joy.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance.
Exactly. Finding what works for you.
I like that.
What works for you.
I like that. And I think that's a good place to maybe wrap up this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see where this conversation goes next, and I hope you are too.
You too. This is really interesting.
So we'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into this whole world of buying and being and minimalism and all that good stuff.
Looking forward to it.
See you then.
Bye.
Okay, so we've been talking about this Diderot effect and all this pressure to constantly upgrade.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
Does choosing to buy less actually make a difference when it comes to, like, the environment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the articles highlighted this with a stat that just blew my mind.
Oh, what was that?
In 2017, a staggering 64% of U.S. consumers had contacted customer service.
Wow, that's a huge number.
It is, and it really got me thinking.
About what?
Well, about all the stuff that must be breaking down or needing replacing,
Oh, yeah, like if that many people are reaching out for help?
Exactly. It points to this culture of disposability that we're kind of trapped in.
Yeah, we buy things, use them, and then toss them when they break, and then just buy new ones.
Exactly. And that whole cycle has a massive environmental footprint. I mean, think about all the resources that go into manufacturing, packaging, shipping, and then all the waste when those things end up in a landfill.
Yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming to think about.
It can.
But one of the sources talked about how even if you're not ready to become a full-blown minimalist, just buying less in general can help.
Oh, for sure.
Like less demand equals less stuff being produced, which means fewer resources used and less waste.
Right. And it ties into this concept of the circular economy that one of the articles mentioned.
Circular economy.
Yeah. Instead of this linear take, make, dispose model, it's about keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible.
Oh, so like repairing things instead of just throwing them away.
Exactly. Or choosing durable goods that are designed to last, things like that.
So it's almost like minimalist principles, but without necessarily having to label yourself as a minimalist.
Right. And even small changes can make a difference.
Like what?
Well, instead of buying a new outfit for every event, you could try building a capsule wardrobe.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Like having a few high-quality pieces that you can mix and match.
Exactly. It reduces your environmental impact. And let's be honest, it probably makes getting dressed a lot less stressful.
Totally.
And the sources also talked about some of the long-term benefits, like carbon reduction, for example.
Oh, right, because the fashion industry is a huge polluter.
Huge.
Yeah.
So even those individual choices about our clothes can really add up.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it makes you feel like you can actually make a difference.
You can, and it all starts with awareness.
Awareness of what?
Well, of how these companies are trying to influence our choices. One of the articles talked about how sophisticated marketing has become, how they use our data to target us with these personalized ads that play on our insecurities and aspirations.
It's kind of scary how much they know about us.
It is. But once we understand these tactics, we can start to become more discerning consumers.
So we can start questioning our impulses.
Exactly. Like, do I really need this, or am I just being manipulated?
Yeah, that's a good point to remember. I mean, one of the articles had this stat that really surprised me. 73% of customers fall in love with a brand because of friendly customer service representatives.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's like we're craving that human connection, that feeling of being seen and valued.
And maybe that's something companies should focus on more, building those relationships instead of just constantly trying to acquire new customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I wonder about the sustainability of that approach for the employees.
What do you mean?
Well, another article pointed out that the customer service industry has the highest employee turnover rate of any business.
Oh, wow. So if they're struggling to retain the very people who are building those relationships with customers, what does that say about their priorities?
Yeah. Are they really valuing those employees, or is it all just about profit in the end?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it seems like there's a disconnect there, but maybe we can shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
We've talked about the environmental benefits of minimalism, but I'm also curious about the personal aspect.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not just about saving the planet. It's also about simplifying your life, having less stress, more time for things that actually matter.
Right, like experiences and relationships.
Exactly. One article talked about how decluttering your physical space can actually lead to decluttering your mental space.
Oh, that makes sense.
It creates a sense of calm and clarity, and when you're not constantly chasing after more fans, you have more energy to invest in things that truly bring lasting fulfillment.
So it's like shifting your focus from external validation to internal satisfaction.
Exactly, and I think that's a really important distinction.
So where do we go from here? I mean, what does all this mean for the listener who's trying to navigate this world of buying and being and finding balance?
I think that's a great question, and I think that's what we'll explore the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about, this pull to buy more and the benefits of buying less.
Right.
And even how companies kind of manipulate us into, wanting all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for this last part of our deep dive, I really want to kind of unpack the why.
Yeah.
Like what's going on in our heads that makes us want to buy in the first place?
That's a great question, and I think a lot of it happens below the surface. We think we're making rational decisions, but a lot of times our choices are actually driven by emotions, instincts, even like subconscious desires.
Yeah, and one article talked about this idea of the hedonic treadmill, which sounds kind of scary, like we're just running and running but not really getting anywhere.
That's a really good analogy because it highlights how temporary that pleasure is that we get from material possessions.
Yeah.
We chase after that new gadget or that fancy outfit thinking it's going to make us happy, but then the excitement wears off and we're right back where we started craving that next hit.
It's like we can never really be satisfied.
Right. And I think a big part of that is comparison.
Oh, yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with images of other people's seemingly perfect lives.
Yeah.
The vacations, the fancy meals, the latest gadgets. And it's easy to fall into that trap of feeling like we're not enough, like we need to keep up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And social media definitely makes that worse.
It does. It amplifies it because we're only seeing everyone's highlight reels, not the behind-the-scenes struggles.
Right. It's like this curated version of reality.
Exactly. And it creates this pressure to project a certain image, to prove that we're just as successful, just as happy. And that's one of the easiest ways to do that.
Buy stuff.
Buy stuff. Exactly things that signal status or belonging or even just distract us from those feelings of inadequacy.
It's like we're trying to buy our way to happiness.
Yeah, and it makes sense on some level. But the problem is that lasting fulfillment doesn't come from things.
It comes from experiences, relationships, personal growth.
Exactly. Things that can't be bought or displayed on social media.
So how do we break free from that cycle?
I think it starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Becoming aware of the influences that are shaping our choices.
Okay.
And one of the articles talked about the power of gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. If we're constantly focused on what we lack, we're always going to be on that treadmill.
Always wanting more.
But if we can appreciate what we already have, maybe that can help us step off.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like shifting our perspective.
Exactly. And it's not about denying ourselves pleasure or material possessions altogether.
It's about being more conscious, more intentional, asking ourselves, do I truly need this? Will this really add value to my life? Or am I just trying to fill a void with stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question to ask, I think.
I think so, too.
It's tough, though, because we live in a world that's constantly telling us To buy more, be more, have more?
It is a challenge, but it's not impossible.
Okay.
More we understand the psychology behind those urges, the more we can start to break free.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think is the most important thing for our listener to take away?
I think it's this: you have more agency than you realize.
Okay.
You're not just a passive recipient of advertising or societal pressures. By understanding the forces at play, by questioning your motives, by making conscious choices about what you bring into your life, you can create a more fulfilling and meaningful existence, both for yourself and for the planet. I love that that's such a powerful message. It's not about being perfect or achieving some arbitrary level of minimalism. It's about progress awareness and choosing a path that feels right for you. And that's something we can all strive for, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a really fascinating conversation.
I agree.
And we'll be back soon with more sources, more insights, and more thought-provoking conversations. Until then, keep diving deep.
See you next time.